Hi, in this video we'll be talking about the top 10 tips to use inside the Designrr Editor. This is an expanded video on a recent video that the founder of Designrr created, Paul Clifford. He went over 10 great examples, and I just want to expand on them from my knowledge of being a former Designrr employee. And I used to go over the training and onboarding of new customers, so there's some things that he left out that I wanted just to add on to. So we're here at my computer, and let's take a look at some of the tips that Paul went over, and I just wanted to expand on them, like I said. So the very first thing that Paul was talking about was, if we come over here, we look at the page thumbnails. He was talking about how you can click on them and move them around. The one thing that I wanted to add on to is, if you wanted to select two of them or multiple pages at a time, say you want to reorder these two pages and move them above this first one. If we click on the first one and then we hold the Shift key on our keyboard and click the second one, it'll also highlight it, and then we can move it and reorder them. Let's go ahead and undo that. The other thing that Paul talked about is over here, this menu here. Most of the time, to be honest with you, you're probably going to leave this open. Yes, you can close it to kind of get a better look at everything, but for the most part, you're probably going to leave this window open because you're going to be using it quite often. Also, in this left-hand column, he was talking about the breadcrumbs up here. So with these breadcrumbs, the page and page content, they're always going to be there. They're always going to be the same. What's going to change is this paragraph, the third one. So if you click on it, you can see it changes the heading. I click on an image, you'll see it switches the image. Where these breadcrumbs come in handy is if you happen to get, sometimes it'll say span, S-P-A-N, or it'll say B for bold, or I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head, but sometimes there will be a fourth one right here. And you're in here and you're clicking, making changes, and you save and publish to PDF, and you look at your PDF and you're like, what the heck? This isn't right. I made these changes. Why didn't it carry over? It's probably because you were on this fourth level. The fourth level, basically it's an error whenever you import something from, say, a Word doc or a website, and Designrr doesn't have that font, or it doesn't have that style that you had in the Word doc or website. It tries to match it up with whatever Designrr has in its database, but if it doesn't, it's kind of like the computer program, it gets confused. And so sometimes up here in this fourth level, you'll see span or bold or B sometimes. So if you ever see you're on that fourth level, all you have to do is click on the word paragraph and it'll automatically take you back to the right level here. So I know that a lot of emphasis on that, but from what I saw in the past was a lot of people, they would run into that, and it's not in the troubleshooting guides because it's not something that's supposed to happen. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. The other thing is he was talking about the text styles, and if you want, you can, yes, each project, it has certain fonts that are loaded here, and there's quite a few of them. It has a little check mark by the one that shows which one you have selected. If you want to use a different font that's not in here, you can check and see if it's in the Google fonts. Right now there's like over 1,000 Google fonts that you can add. So if we click on more fonts here, this is going to pull up actually 1,017. There was just 1,002 the other day. So these are all the fonts that you can load into Designrr. Some of them are already loaded in, as you saw in that list, but if you have a particular font that you're looking for, type it in here. Let's see what comes up if I type in comic. So if I type in comic, I can click on it and it'll automatically get applied inside my editor, and now you see this comic Nueva, I don't even know how to pronounce that, has been added into, and it's changed all the paragraphs into that new font. The other thing that I wanted to talk about just quickly is the global changes, and that kind of just goes to show this example here. The global changes are only going to affect the same asset class. So if you see here, I'm clicked on paragraph and I changed the font. It's only changing the fonts in the paragraphs. It's not changing the fonts in the headings. It's not changing fonts anywhere else in the project. It's only changing them at whatever asset that I have selected. So if I have a paragraph selected, it's only going to change paragraphs. If I have headings selected and I go to change, it's only changing the headings. So if you're wanting the headings and the paragraph text fonts to be the same, you are going to have to change them individually. So moving on, the repaginating. A lot of people get upset that Designrr, how it's designed, is to save space. So what you need to do, if Designrr is pulling up the text and say I wanted to start on a new page, and it keeps on pulling it up and making changes to the text layout that I don't want, what you can do is if you put in a heading element, this one's already has it here, but if you put in a heading element, that's going to be like an anchor point. And Designrr looks at that anchor point and says, hey, if he or she put this heading here, this is where they want this content to start. Don't move past it. So wherever you put in a heading, it's not going to pull the text up past it. So easy way to add a heading if you don't have one there is we come up here and we click on the plus sign and we come to typography, and the headings right down here in this bottom left corner, you click and drag it onto the page wherever you want it, and now you have a heading and Designrr will not pull past that heading. And so the next thing I wanted to show you is the editing. Paul did talk about how to make some edits within the text itself. The first time you click on something, you are just selecting it. You'll see this blue box will be around the text. If you actually want to go in and edit it, you need to either, after you click on it once, double click on it, or click on the edit pencil. You'll notice, see how this box changed to black here? That means we're in the edit mode, and now we can get in here and we can start typing and doing whatever. One other thing I wanted to just throw out there is in Designrr, the delete key will not work. So if you want to delete some text, you have to hit the backspace button. One of the developers, actually, I asked them about that one time, and I guess of how Designrr works, it was throwing something off, so they disabled it, and they made it so just the backspace button will be the delete key, basically. So moving on, text wrap. A lot of times people would like to wrap text around the images. Let's make this image a little bit smaller. So the one thing that you want to make sure that you do before you click the text wrap icon, which is right up here, you want to make sure whatever image that you want the paragraph text to wrap around, you want it to be directly above it. So I have this image right above it. Now I can click the text wrap. It pulls the text, and the text wrap, it's only going to work with the position either on the left, or if you come up here, you can move it to the right. You can also resize the image and that will affect how much text is wrapped around it. But as you see, you get to some point and it looks horrible. So there is a limit of how the text wrap feature will work for you. So that's text wrap. Headers and footers, Paul talked about. So with the headers and footers, he was talking about if making global changes to the headers, if you wanted to change the text, so all the headers said my ebook. If you just change it on one, you're going to notice the other ones hasn't changed. And so what he was talking about is you click on it once, and then you see this little rectangle here. We're going to click on that, and it says, when you hover your mouse over it, apply this to all headers. Are you sure? Of course I am. So now every header has been, that new heading has been applied. Same thing holds true here with the footer text. You're going to click on the box that says locked. Again, make your change, and then you're going to click the little box to apply to all pages. Now the one thing he didn't talk about, and this is a good illustration of it here. See how I have this blue background here? Well, what if I wanted to change that background? So I would have to do that. Well, I could actually come in here, and actually it's not going to let me change it in there. I would have to come here to this background, and then we change it to, let's change it to red. So by changing it over here with this global change button on, it's going to automatically apply to every page. I don't have to click any extra buttons. Anything that I do over here in this left-hand column with this global change button on, it automatically gets applied to all the same elements. So same thing, if I clicked on this and I selected the whole footer area, again, come down here, click on the red, change, they all change. So the other thing is, Paul was talking about images. You can add images into Designrr by coming up here, clicking on the plus sign, and the images are in the media tab. So we're going to expand that and drag an image onto the page. And then all these images that you see here, these are any images that I previously uploaded. If I wanted to add a new image, I can either upload my own from my computer, or if I have an image URL from a website, I could just enter the URL image here. But a lot of people are going to use this search feature. So if you type in dog, for example, it's going to come back with, these are all royalty-free images from like Unsplash, Pixabay, Pexels, some royalty-free image sites that you can use. So the one thing I wanted to expand on is, yes, he did talk about how you can be sure to use a very general term. You don't want to use dog sitting by a tree at sunset. You're not going to get too many results. But if you type in dog, for example, and maybe you don't like the ones that you had here, well, as you can see, there's no more images. All we have to do is just slightly change this text term here. So if I go to dogs, yes, some of the images are going to be the same, but we're going to get different ones also. Majority of them probably are going to be different. There will be, some that are the same, but for the most part, they will be new images. The other thing is that Paul didn't talk about, that I have personally used myself, is if you hover over an image and you click on this little box with this arrow pointing out and click on the preview, you can actually use these images because they're all royalty-free images. You can see right here, this one's actually coming from Unsplash. But if you right click, you can actually save this image to your desktop and you can use it in different places. So that's a really cool feature that you can kind of use Designrr as a place to get royalty-free images, which he didn't mention, which is really cool. Other thing you can do is you can actually edit the photos. If you click the edit button before you load them into your project, the image editor, I was never a fan of it because it didn't have a lot to it. It was a pretty basic editor. You can do things like, if you look at the toolbar down here at the bottom, you can crop images, you can resize images, you can, add text onto an image if you like. It's, like I said, very, very basic, but it does its job. Designrr, even though the name says Designrr, it's not really an image editing tool, kind of something like Canva or Photoshop. I like to use them in collaboration with each other. So there is that. So anyways, let's pick a picture here. So if we add an image in here, what we can always do is, if we don't like this image, if I click the M again, I can actually pull up a different image. So you're not stuck to that. All you got to do is change, click on the little M. We can resize the images however we want. Another thing, if you only want to change the width of maybe you're trying to fit it into a tight spot and you don't want, whenever we click on a dot, it's going to stay in proportion, but I only want to move in the sides. If I hold the shift key on my keyboard, then I grab one of the dots on the side, I can just change the width, or I can just change the height. So that's a very handy feature to know. And the other thing Paul was talking about was the page sizes. So with the page sizes, like he was saying, and this is something that I would recommend to customers when I was talking with them, yes, you can change the page sizes, and you can do it inside the editor here. If you come over here to the little gear icon, you can actually change it to landscape if you want, or you can change it to these different sizes, preset sizes here. What I usually recommend people doing is, before you even create the project, pick if you want landscape layout, choose it at the beginning before Designrr lays out any of the content. It will make your job easier. The way to do that, I'll just show you a quick example. If you click on a new project and you're at the point where you're picking a template, see over right here, you can click on page size. By default, for here, it's A4. If I click on change, then I can change it to letter. So now, or if I want to do landscape to make it even more a bigger change, now it's in landscape mode. So now whenever I pick a template, the whole thing is going to be laid out in landscape automatically for me. And it's going to import the content better for you and make things a lot easier for you. You will notice though in landscape, if you use one of our pre-made, I'm sorry, I can't say our anymore, Designrr's pre-made images, you will see like the overlap, and what we would have to do on something like this is resize the cover page. I will show you how to do that in another video though. So that's how you change it before you actually create the template or create the project. The other thing that I wanted to show you is one thing that a lot of people would always ask was, how do I export this to Word? And I would always ask, well, why do you want to export it to Word? And I say, well, I need to spell check it. I want to check the grammar. And in Designrr, you can't do that. You can only export to, Adobe Reader or a PDF. You can export to MOBI format, EPUB format, and then if you want to embed it, you can export it to HTML. So there's no way to export it easily and then spell check it. But there is a way, and this is something that I did myself when I worked at Designrr, is this only is going to work with Chrome browsers. I know a lot of people do use Chrome. I did myself. If you come up here in this top left corner and click on these three little dots, and you come down to more tools, and then we come to extensions, this is going to open up here. And where we're going to go is we're going to click on Open Chrome Web Store. And if you go in there and you check and you type in, I just put in spell check. And I have this installed myself. It's this tool, LT, whatever that is, Grammar and Spell Checker language tool. And when you install it, if you see in Designrr, see how I have these little check marks here? So if I want to check the grammar or the spelling, let me misspell a word here real quick. So to make it spell check this, if I click on it and I highlight it, well, of course it's not doing it now, but it flagged and let me know that there was an issue here. Let me go down here. Let me misspell a word and see if it'll catch it. And of course it's not catching it. But if you install this extension, it will give you an option that you can spell check, and it'll check grammar too, and it's free. So who doesn't love that? All right, and so the last 2 of the 10, feels like it's been a lot more than 10, I apologize. The last 2 is when you are, what Paul talked about was like splitting up a page. If you wanted to get content to start on a new page, what you could do is, let's say I wanted this to start on a new page. I come up here on the plus sign and I drag this new page element right above here. The problem is that it would always leave like blank text or a blank area here. So a really quick way, an easy way to fill in that space. Of course, with this one, I don't have more text on this page, but if I wanted to bring more text up to fill in any gaps, I can click the Repaginate button. But if you remember earlier how I told you if I put in a heading, that's kind of like an anchor point. So what we first need to do, click on that, move it up, then we could click on the Repaginate and it'll pull all the text back together. So whenever you split anything and you make stuff happen on a new page, start on a new page, it's going to leave a blank area, and the Repaginate is usually the easiest way to bring that content up. And the last thing that Paul talked about in his video was the help button. The help is over here. This actually pulls up the Designrr Help Center where you can find all the articles. These are like quick start guides, kind of how to start a new project. These are really good. I wrote them myself, or a lot of them were my suggestions. They're like kind of the top 10 tips of a lot of things that people would ask me. And then these are very commonly asked questions that we used to get. And so if you click on them, it takes you right to the guide and shows you how to do stuff. The most important and impressive thing with Designrr is throughout the week, when I worked there, we had 24-hour support throughout the weekdays. So if you come down here and you click on the little chat, if you send a message to us, my picture used to be there, I promise, actually still might be there, but if you click on send a message, this opens up the live chat. And usually, I know it does say under 2 hours, it's usually a lot sooner than that. Utilize that. Like, that was the one thing that I would always tell customers is utilize the chat. It wasn't like we were a different company where we didn't respond to you for a couple days. Like, our goal was to answer you as fast as possible. Like, I always tried to respond back within 5 minutes if I could. If it was on like a training call or something like that, obviously I couldn't do that. But we did always try to get back to you as soon as possible. The one thing that makes things a lot more helpful for the support is if you start a conversation, you can start a new chat each time. I wouldn't recommend doing that because then you're going to get a new agent or a new person. So if you click on this, see all your conversations, it'll pull up all the previous chats that you had. So go to one that, wherever your last message, if you have a question about the same thing, then open up that previous chat message, and that way the same agent you were dealing with will get that message again. So, sorry, that was a lot. And I probably over explained things, but I think that they'll really help you. If you have more questions, leave a comment in the chat below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. I also set up a Facebook group. It's free. I just called it Ebook Creators, where I'm going to kind of be going over Designrr, Scribble, Beacon, Canva, and all these different softwares that will help you with creating ebooks. If you're interested in the chat, just type in Ebook Creator Group, and I will send you a link to that group, and you can join and hopefully benefit. Again, I'm not with Designrr anymore. I love helping people, so I want to put that resource out there for you, but I need you to understand I'm not any way affiliated with Designrr anymore. So if you have like a true tech support type question, I'm not going to be able to help you with that. I would tell you to contact support, but I can answer a lot of questions for you and really help you get going with Designrr. So if you're interested, just put a message in the chat, Ebook Designrr Group, and I'll send you the link, and you can join and pick my brain and ask me questions, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thanks for staying this long and watching this whole video. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you next time.